your perfect will for humanity.
And the earth shall know God's name. And the earth will sing God's praise. All of the earth shall sing the praise of our God. You're our God. And the earth shall know God's name. And the earth will sing God's praise. All of the earth shall sing the praise of our God. You're our God.
Heal the land, meet the need, set the captives free. Heal the land, meet the need, set the captives free. Heal the land, meet the need, set the captives free. Heal the land, meet the need, set the captives free. Heal the land, meet the need, set the captives free. Heal the land, meet the need, set the captives free. Heal the land, meet the need, set the captives free. Heal the land, meet the need, set the captives free. And the earth shall know God's name. And the earth will sing God's praise. All of the earth shall sing the praise of our God. You're our God. And the earth shall know God's name. And the earth will sing God's praise. All of the earth shall sing the praise of our God. You're our God.
Good morning, Evergreen Online. Have you missed me? Probably not, because you keep seeing me on these online devotionals. I'm sorry and I apologize if some of you thought that my sabbatical was going to be your break away from me. It didn't turn out that way. Sorry, not sorry. Now, if all is still going to plan with our church, this week you're meeting at Arcadia County Park for a midsummer Church in the Park event from 10 a.m. until noon. This is always a wonderful time to connect with others in the congregation, and it's also a great way or a great event to invite friends and family who maybe don't go to Evergreen yet to one of our gatherings to meet some people. I hope those of you who go have a fun and meaningful time together. Now, part of our monthly rhythm is to feature a missional partner for these online devotionals. It gives them a little more time to explain and talk about their ministry. Now, because it's hard to plan months and months in advance for these, I actually don't know who the staff has asked to share this week. But I know that if they're a missional partner with Evergreen, then they're going to be really fascinating. So here is our missional partner for the month.
Hello, Evergreen. We're Albert and Emily Chen. We've been serving as missionaries in Mexico City over the past 5 years.
During that time, we've had the privilege of walking alongside a local team to seek shalom and transformation in urban poor communities on the eastern side of Mexico City.
Our ministry seeks holistic community transformation through developing local leaders and partnering with local churches. We've had multiple programs and initiatives that involve youth and children, schools, families, sports leagues, community health clinics, community organizing, infrastructure projects, food security, anti-corruption advocacy, and pastoral training.
As we know is the case for so many, these last few years have been incredibly difficult. Working among populations that were already vulnerable prior to the pandemic, COVID only exacerbated the challenges faced in the communities where we serve. Our colleagues have worked tirelessly to love their neighbors and provide anything from emergency groceries, emotional support for those who experience loss, to spiritual accompaniment for local pastors as they led their churches through uncharted territory. In the midst of it all, we've seen the resiliency of our friends and colleagues, and we've seen God at work to bring hope in the midst of incredibly difficult circumstances.
After a tumultuous and grueling 15 months of the pandemic, in August 2021, our ministry underwent significant leadership transition, at which point we were asked by the board to serve on an interim leadership team. We had the privilege and challenge of leading the organization together with the local pastor to rebuild the ministry, improve the organizational culture, refocus our strategy, and strengthen our operations. It was an incredibly complex and difficult season. Yet again, we saw God at work to bring healing and transformation. Our hope was to see more shalom within our ministry and our team as we continued to seek shalom in the communities where we serve. And God showed up in very surprising ways.
After a 6-month stint on the transition team, we worked with the board to hand over leadership to our national colleague, the local pastor, and prepared for a time of sabbatical, which we had postponed prior to taking on the leadership role. We finally began our sabbatical starting March of this year. Thanks to the generosity of our supporters and church partners like Evergreen, we were able to kickstart our time with a 3-week renewal and growth program for Christian ministry leaders at Alongside in Kalamazoo, Michigan. This was an incredibly transformative time for us both as we processed these last 5 years on the field, especially this most recent season.
We just arrived here in Los Angeles after 2 months in Boston, and we'll be spending the next several months reconnecting with friends and family, enjoying a time of rest and recreation, processing the past several months on the field, and ultimately discerning what God might be inviting us to next for this next season.
So we would just ask that you please pray for us as we take this much needed time of rest and as we listen for God's voice and direction in this next season of our lives. We ask that you would also pray for our colleagues in Mexico who continue the good work of seeking shalom for their neighbors and their communities. We're so grateful for each one of you and looking forward to connecting with many of you over these coming months. And we're grateful to be together with our Evergreen family during this time of sabbatical. So thank you so much. God bless.
Because of who you are, I give you glory. Because of who you are, I give you praise. Because of who you are, I will lift my voice and say, Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Because of who you are, I give you glory. Because of who you are, I give
You may recall that I have organized my sabbatical into 3 parts: rest, receive, and respond. And I invited the congregation on a parallel journey this summer. Now, the month of June, you talked about the freedom of God's rest. The month of July, you've been talking about receiving God's love. Now, this past month, you've been in this sermon series called Love Myself off the really catchy BTS K-pop song. The lyrics of the song, even though they're in Korean, most of them, they talk about how it's often difficult to love ourselves. We know about all the imperfections and the shortfalls that we have as people, and sometimes that makes it hard for us to believe that we have any value in God's eyes. My hope for you is that this month, you were able to receive love and blessing from God. And even if it's impossible for you to love yourself, that you are able to put your faith in a God who deems you worthy of love. My second hope is that you started listening to some really cool K-pop music. Now, next month, we begin the last phase of my sabbatical with the theme of respond. After disengaging through rest, after receiving personal encouragement and blessing from God, now we are ready to respond to God. For me, that means a month of seeking God's direction for Evergreen and praying for all of you. We've been through a lot as a church, and I know God has more wonderful things in store for us. I want to be faithful by letting God direct me as I look to lead the church into the next season of ministry life. Now, if you remember me in August, could you pray that God would give me a sense of where He wants us to go? Pray that my times with God would be rich and fruitful this month as I seek direction from Him. Thank you so much. Now, what this all means for you is that the month of August will be a time where you'll be thinking about Evergreen and the Evergreen Church family as well, as you consider how God is calling you to respond in participation after a summer of rest and receiving. That's what next month will be about for you. You'll be starting a sermon series called I Have Nothing, inspired by the great Whitney Houston, where you will consider the precious gift of community that God's given you in Evergreen. Hopefully we can look at every person at Evergreen, and as Whitney sings, you can say, I have nothing if I don't have you. It also reminds me of the story in Luke chapter 8 of the Gerasene demoniac, where, if you recall, Jesus heals a demonized man and sends a legion of destructive spirits into a herd of pigs. Now, after the man's healed, the man comes to Jesus and begs to travel with him. But Jesus sends him back to his hometown and says, return home and tell how much God has done for you. Jesus has transformed this man's life, but He doesn't stop there. He tells the man to respond by ministering to his community. That's what we're going to ask all of you to consider as well. This August, each worship service will help you think about the church community, our community, especially as we emerge from this pandemic. My hope is that we'll start to deeply appreciate all the different parts of Evergreen and eagerly desire a regathering and a reconstitution of our community next year. The pandemic over the last few years has divided and dispersed us, and we'll need to think about what it means to gather in a hybrid world and how to be the church today with this new normal. Now, the general congregation in August will meet exclusively online for worship service. And let me reiterate, there will be no in-person Sunday service throughout the month of August. All services will be online only. This will allow us to bring all of our leaders and volunteers onto campus for a summit gathering for that group of people. Like last year, our Sunday morning will have 2 events running concurrently: worship service and summit leadership gatherings. Now, these summit gatherings are for volunteers, leaders, and anyone who is even remotely interested in becoming a volunteer or a leader at Evergreen. So if you're a volunteer or a leader or you want to be one, please make plans to join us on campus for these gatherings. It will be an important time to meet other leaders, learn about their ministries, and go over important training needed for the coming year. And I hear we might have some goodies for you too. Now, for all of you, whether you attend the summit leadership and volunteer gatherings or you're sitting at home viewing our online worship services in August, please keep our church family in prayer. And may this series draw you into deeper community where you can experience God's love and God's calling with others on the journey. Grace and peace to you all. I'll see you in about a month.